When it comes to introducing young adults to a new culture, a little romance never hurts. That's the thinking behind Love Boat Taiwan, a new documentary. Love Boat is shorthand for a summer program subsidized by Taiwan's government for decades to strengthen links between the island and the rest of the world. In today's Bloomberg Equality, our ongoing conversation about the bottom line impact of diversity, I sat down with the documentary's filmmaker, Valerie Soe, who attended Love Boat in the early 1980s.
They did not have, like you said, a lot of political power in the world. You know, it's a very teeny little country, and the big country that's kind of wanting to take over Taiwan, because it's always thought of Taiwan as being part of it, is China, which of course is huge and influential and has a big military and a giant budget. Taiwan could not compete with that in any way. So what they did instead was they kind of went around the side door and they started to recruit directly to people living in the US to get their support. And, you know, it's really what you would call soft power, right? It's a really smart way to get a lot of people interested in supporting your country through culture, through, you know, food, through entertainment, through music, whatever. So, yeah, and so this is part of that.
So it's interesting because in your film, a couple of people point out that they went on, for the tour portion of the trip, they went to all these different places where they saw the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial, the Chiang Kai-shek Park, the Chiang Kai-shek, of course, Chiang Kai-shek being the former nationalist leader who led troops to Taiwan after the communists kicked the nationalists out of mainland China. At the same time, they noticed that there are military displays everywhere they went. It was always about the army and how strong militarily Taiwan was.
Yeah, I think again it was just a way to prove that Taiwan was like an important country. You know, it wasn't just like this backwater province of China that China said it was. They wanted to show that Taiwan is an independent country. Because I want to say that when you're supposed to be thinking of an independent country, you have your own elections, you have your own currency, and you have your own military, right? Those are three of the requirements. And so they wanted to prove that they had their own military. Obviously, they had their own elections and their own currency. So that was, again, a kind of a way to influence people to think that way.
Now, this is really, as you said, about soft power, winning the hearts and minds of younger generations of future leaders, future investors. It's similar to Israel's Birthright program. Of course, both Israel and Taiwan have seen a lot of political change over the last 3 decades. Does Taiwan's government still support Love Boat?
They supported it in a much smaller way because it was a very expensive program. At the peak, I want to say 1,200 kids went every summer, and when I went, and I think through the 90s, it was only about $400 or $500 for 6 weeks. And that was plus your plane ticket.
So heavily subsidized.
Heavily subsidized. So you figure times 1,000, 1,200 people every summer, you know, the government's probably thinking, oh, that's a little too much. So I think they've splintered it off into smaller programs that are a little more focused. Like the big, huge program where 1,200 people go and just have fun is not really in existence anymore.
And the government's different as well because you have the Democratic People's Party in power as opposed to the KMT and Nationalist Party. There's also a generational shift as well because we were talking about how back when you went on Love Boat, no one identified themselves as Taiwanese. You're just Chinese. But now there's a distinction here, and most people who are in Taiwan consider themselves Taiwanese.
Yeah, a lot of the younger people do think of themselves as Taiwanese. They define themselves as that. And here in the U.S. too, I remember the last census was at 2010. There was a write-in campaign to say, don't call yourself Chinese American, write in Taiwanese American.
Jeremy Lin is a good example of that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He always calls himself Taiwanese. Yeah.
Now, your day job is professor of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State University. You teach courses on Asian Americans in mass media, Asian American women. How important is a program like Love Boat to the formulation of your cultural identity? Well, connect the dots for me here.
Sure, for me, I mean, I was kind of like Judy Chu. You know, I grew up in pretty much an all-white suburb. And, you know, we did celebrate, you know, Chinese New Year, and we had, you know, a lot of Chinese traditions around that. But it was mostly like going to my grandmother's house every month. So I didn't speak any Chinese at my house. Nobody in our family spoke Chinese to me. And so going over there, I had been to Hong Kong a couple times, but going over to Taiwan and being there for 6 weeks, all of a sudden it was immersion in Asian culture. And I think that, it definitely made me really more interested in what was going on over there.